So what is growing on? I have got a quick nursery update video for you guys here today, and I've had a ton of people ask me, what did you do in the nursery for the hurricane? What are you doing for the hurricane? What are you doing with the plants? Are you covering them all up? Guys, I did absolutely nothing. You really can't do much. You know, obviously I want these plants to get irrigation for as long as they can until we got hit by the hurricane. My biggest fear and concern was losing power for a long period of time and not having water to water these plants. The biggest problem we had was a little bit of a mess. Some plants blew over, but for the most part, you can't protect all of these plants. Good friends of Steve, the owner of Fruitscapes Nursery down on Pine Island, they got destroyed by the hurricane. I believe they even lost the road or the bridge coming in. I think that's already been fixed in some like record 3-day time, but I'm sure everything is laid over there. I know everybody out there on the island laid over by the storm, although I think they laid down the big trees. I think everybody out there lost their greenhouses. They took a real beating down south. I mean, I've seen Punta Gorda, Fort Myers, Venice, and Nokomis here since the storm, and Sarasota. It's unbelievable. Really quite the mess. Really the worst part is in those areas that got that storm surge. I've lived through a couple of hurricanes. I know that stuff is no joke. They definitely got battered down there. So a little bit of a nursery update for you guys today. Everything is looking great. Nursery girls are killing it. Everything is just really lush right now going into winter. Everglades tomato doing good. Peanut, bullvine, arrowroot, lots of African potato mint. This one is going to go down here in the wintertime. This makes a nice little potato on it. But my favorite part is just this beautiful ground cover that it makes, how dense it actually comes in. And it makes these really delicious, small like Irish potatoes. If you guys buy this late in the year, you really want to wait until the end of next year to harvest. Even though it is in that mint family, you cannot do anything with the leaves as far as for like teas or anything like that, to my knowledge. It just makes a beautiful, just probably one of my favorite ground covers. It gets so dense, it really tends to almost shade out the weeds there. Kind of coming up on some of those calliandras, lots of mulberries in here, lots of figs. The figs start to get some really bad rust on them, especially towards the end of season when they're going to be dropping their leaves. Everybody asks me, what do I do with my fig? Don't worry, the leaves are going to fall off. In spring, you're going to get fresh, beautiful, new growth leaves. Not much you can do about that. Not much I'm really worried about with that. Lots of pigeon pea over here, cranberry hibiscus, white society garlic. Probably have 5 or 6 different varieties of the gondolas. You could see the roselle is just starting to go to flower and making that calyx. And this is what we'd be making the tea out of. You can also eat these. They can be eaten raw. They kind of have a sweet tang to them. Most people like them. I'm gonna eat this right out of the nursery because everything is organic. We don't spray anything here. Use beyond organic practices. We hand weed everything. No herbicides, no fungicides, no insecticides. That right there is a random, not supposed to be in here. Not sure how it got here. I'll give that away. Mexican petunia. I'm thinking it was left over from something, but definitely doesn't belong in the nursery. Lots of salvias in here. Lots of goldenrod that was just cut back. Lots of our perennial pentas. We've got a lot of those in 4-inch. Only a handful of the 1 gallon in this area left. Native salvias, the whites, the reds, the pinks, the butterfly pea. This one's really awesome, really popular. You can see the native bees even like the flowers on this. Almost makes like a nature's Kool-Aid. Really cool tea, really cool drink. Vines well, does good on a trellis. Really cool looking plant once it kind of takes off for you. Lots of milkweeds in here. Swamp hibiscus, purple society garlic, lots of different varieties of firebush. Got a lot of ice cream bean inga there, and just know that I'm on the side of the nursery that we, for mostly, larger orders, job installs, so everything that we ship is on the other side of the property. Some really big papayas, probably going to put those on discount soon. They're just getting too big here going into winter. Maybe like a buy one, get one free or something like that. I do have some really cool rare varieties. Of course, lots of moringa. This is one we struggle to keep in stock. They go out as quick as we can get them started. We do start all of these from a special seed variety. Not just your regular moringa. These are all PK1 starts. Lots of guavas, lots of Barbados cherry, and something that I haven't had for a long time that I finally have available again in big pots are Adamoyas. I think I have Lisa, I have Presley, I might have a Geffner or two, but these are just huge trees at a fruiting age. I was able to pick a bunch up about 4 months back. I've been kind of sitting on them and letting a few slide out here and there. Ademoyas are really awesome. Delicious fruits. It's a neat collector's item. Lots of carambola. Whoa. Here's all of our loquats. They're all starting to flower, and the flowers on those just smell unbelievable. Have a really, really nice fragrance to them. Lots of strawberry trees in this area. Lots of Cattleya guavas. And then we have a lot of stone fruits over there, like pears, peaches, plums, and so on. Keep about 8 to 10 varieties of loquats in stock. Seem to not be able to get rid of these Hong Kong orchids. I brought a couple in. The girls propagated them. Not a very popular tree. We'll probably start phasing those out. Lots of mangoes. So we probably have about 75 mangoes in stock, maybe about 20 varieties. Try to keep those in as much as we can. See lots of avocados and cherry of the Rio Grande down there. I have some monster Cecropias. These guys have actually been getting fruit on them in the pots. They grow super fast. Here's some of the bigger avocados. These are in 25 gallons. Some bigger olives. Some 15-gallon avocados. A lot of loquats in there, olives, and then these are more of the collector bananas. This is a really interesting coconut that I picked up. It's a different species. Doesn't actually make a nut, but it'll supposedly take down to about 12 degrees. So pretty excited about being able to even just grow a cool looking palm like this, even though we're not going to be able to get the nut. Not very common. I actually found those from a collector. This one doesn't seem to be doing so well. I don't know if it just needs a soil change out, maybe some Epsom salt, something to kind of wake them up a bit. I'm sure just putting them in the ground will bring them back to life. Oh, hey, you got Muddy. You got Muddy. Look at you. Really? Really? Seriously? You gotta learn how to help us instead of getting dirty, girl. The beast. All right, so Kiki is a hot mess. Let's go check out that online store. All right, guys, so back Nursery online store, little update video, and something that changed in this area was there was a giant chaya tree. This thing was about 20 foot. You can see the base on it there. It got knocked over in the storm. Those are very soft wood. Anything over 20, 30 miles an hour, typically they will break. I just cut this thing down. Within a year, it'll be back up to where it was. This isn't the first time this happened. You can kind of see there's an old gnarly stump there behind it where it's broken before. So there's a couple times here that this thing's actually been cut down and came back. These trees are super tough. I tell people all the time, chaya is probably one of the toughest plants there is. I mean, if you can take a cutting like this, I can leave this on my desk for a month, plant it, and it'll grow. That is one tough plant. These things are bulletproof. Probably got about 5 varieties of this now too. So ones that have much more green on the leaf, less serration, ones that even have more serration but more flowers, which are really good for butterflies and beneficial predatory insects, etc. All right, Sandlot, you ready for this tour? So we are a little bit beat up back here. Some of the plants took a beating in the storm. Starfruit, it more or less woke it up. It didn't get beat. This thing is flowering like it's never flowered before. There's actually an interesting study on starfruit about cracking and breaking the branches. I talked about it in one of my other after hurricane videos I did maybe a couple years ago here. And it was unreal, the amount of flowers that came out, that stimulation from that tree being shook. For a tree that doesn't like a ton of wind, is almost wind intolerant, that once in a while wind, it just tends to wake these guys up. The flowers on these are edible, and these trees are just super abundant. Probably my most productive trees on the property are obviously carambola. Got about 12 of them here. Get 10, 15,000 pounds of fruit a year. We can't keep up with those, so that's a good problem to have. That's what we want. We want abundance. We want things that thrive on neglect. We want things that are easy to grow, no irrigation. Set it and forget it. That's what it's about. That's what we're kind of looking for. That's what we focus on. So lots of mulberries, variegated nopales, regular nopales. Actually, just the other day I had this in some eggs. It was absolutely delicious. I used just the green version, and I like taking these young, tender leaves, sauteed them up, mixed them in with my eggs and hash browns, and it was delicious. I really like just even eating the raw pods is nice. Everglades tomatoes. I believe, are we still holding on with some Molokia over there, or are those salvias? I believe those are actually the salvias. They look very similar at the younger age like that. Lots of Turk's cap. We carry the pink, we carry the red. You can see they've got some newer stuff getting cut back over here. They probably got a little bit too big. These are all big Mexican sunflowers. We try to keep them at a height for the pots or the boxes, so they're easily shippable. We don't need to prune them back in the shipping house. So lots of our Sandhill Farm Select elderberry. That's one that really seems to do great with dry feet. I selected it here locally. More of the cranberry hibiscus, Barbados cherry, the native sunshine mimosa, nitrogen fixer. Makes a beautiful flower too. Some of that quinoa. Here's some more mulberries. Oh, I see a mulberry. Obviously not a ripe one, but when you guys prune these things, it definitely wakes them up. It can get them to fruit a couple more times for you. See a ton of Barbados cherry, dwarf Barbados cherry, sweet almonds, Cattleya guavas, some lemongrass, native coral honeysuckle. That's a really good one for bringing in hummingbirds. Looks like we've got some 1 gallon native mealygrass, a couple 1 gallon Simpson stopper, Fakahatchee grass, and then these guys tend to get really tall and blow off the table. I think the girls are starting to keep them lower now. It's also one that's super popular. We sell a ton of vetiver grass. Really good for erosion, really good for biomass, really nice filler in a space. It's a neat looking plant in the landscape too because it gets so tall. Cat whisker. This is one that I've always used for beneficial and predatory insects, and I just recently read an article about how medicinal it is and how many different medicinal uses it has that I honestly had no idea about. I just thought it was a cool looking plant. Always see bees on it, butterflies, love bugs, you name it, they're on here. We just got done with love bug season. They were going nuts in here. Oh, I see some figs, almost ripe. Not quite though. These are some collector figs I actually got from somebody a couple years ago. And they are old, they are gnarly. They've been in pots for a while. Got some Pakistani mulberries over here. Got a greenhouse that needs to be recovered. It is a mess. I don't know if just pressure washing this will maybe clean it up a little bit, but it's almost starting to block the sun, getting that kind of mildew on there like that. Lots of stevia over there, lots of longevity, Okinawa spinach. That's another one I struggle to keep big plants in stock because they move so fast. So a lot of times the little guys, we don't sell them until they get to be something like this. So a nice filled out plant. I can tell you, my guys have been absolutely killing the greens around here. Edible leaf hibiscus, all the different varieties, the katuk, the moringa, the longevity, the Okinawa. They've been cooking up those greens every night, typically making with lentils and some other type of side, and it's absolutely delicious. Even better than it is raw. When you actually cook these up and you saute them, add a little salt and pepper, they get delicious. It makes a really nice side of greens. So highly suggest trying cooking those if you haven't yet. Girls got this completely stacked out. This is the one I need to do some pressure washing in. Probably get that cleaned up this winter. Sandlock, you back? Oh, you just about shook your head and covered me in some of that good stuff. These are the larger leaf varieties. A bunch of different names for these. I just like to call them edible leaf hibiscus. Some people call them the Kiko's crump. I mean, there's all these different kind of common names. But these things are delicious. There's lots of different variations and varieties, different leaf styles. Got a lot of purple possum, passion fruit. That's probably the most popular one. We get a lot of native firebush. And what do we got back up in here? We've got some true coffee. We got the real kava over here too. Got some different Monstera deliciosas. We got some true coffee, more of that longevity spinach, some of that low lot Thai pepper leaf. That is an edible green. One of the guys made grape leaves, added the leaves for this. Pretty good, but I think using something with a bigger leaf might have been a little better, but it worked great. It was delicious once cooked. Got a bunch of little miracle fruits back here. These guys are super slow growing. If you haven't tried a miracle fruit yet, I highly suggest that they will fruit at a very young age. I mean, you could see fruit on a 1 gallon. That's not very uncommon. Sandlot, you're back. Orange spiraling ginger, variegated spiraling ginger, shampoo ginger, lesser galangal, regular galangal, lots of different ones to choose from. Finger ginger, pink perfection ginger. It goes on and on, guys. A lot of these are going to be going dormant here very soon. You can see with these turmerics, they're starting to look rough. They're going to sleep. Once they die back, once they turn brown, that's when they push all those energy down into the roots. That's when that root really tends to plump up. So if you're going to be harvesting turmeric, you really want to have it in the ground at least a full year and wait until that leaf completely dies out before you do any kind of harvest there. Everything over here was just cut back. This looks like it was sisu spinach. Yeah, this was all just recently trimmed, probably getting a little bit too big for the pot. This is what it looks like when it's filled out though. And I think that's the skinny leaf variety, and I also have a big leaf variety. Lots of bacopa. This one's really good for brain function. Memory, I believe. This is a very popular herb, medicinally used. Kind of makes a great ground cover. Really likes that wet feet. Something that does good maybe by a pond or a bog area. Anything like that. And there's that smaller leaf variety of the chaya. I've seen this actually in native butterfly gardens. I was like, what? Chaya? That's not native? Well, they planted it just for the butterflies. I thought that was kind of cool that somebody even in there knew that. And it also has that edible factor. This one, it has a lot of serration in the leaf. So you take one like this, and you see how much you get in there of leaf, and then you look at one like this, and you can see how much more green is on there. I even have a larger leaf variety that gets even more green than that, but there's a really good comparison once again, where that leaf can get 4 times the size of my hand. So it can really be not used as a wrap or something. That's another one that we have used for grape leaves. Lots of caliandras. Always try to keep some small bananas in stock. This time of year that flow tends to slow down a little bit, but we at least have 3 or 4 varieties. What else we got growing on over here? I believe these are all Cattleya guavas in this area. Some Parlor maple hibiscus. Rose of Sharon. This one has actually a pretty decent edible flower. That one's pretty good. I like it. Lots of that katuk. Super high in protein. I think that stuff is delicious raw too. It is one of my favorites. Looks like that's all edible hibiscus, kind of rolling into Suriname cherries. Lots of vitex or chash tree. This is a favorite for me because it flowers so often. It's also highly medicinal. Pretty plant in the landscape. It can make a nice focal point, and the purple flowers are just gorgeous. Got some peanut butter fruit in here. Got some Thai basil in here. Got some chocolate mint in here. So lots of different stuff, and this is just kind of overflow for the front nursery. Bigger bananas, more Barbados cherry, lots of lychee trees. Had a hard time getting those, so we're trying to hold on to them. And there's the Molokia. It is still holding on, but it is starting to go to flower. Guys, these seed pods, first of all, this thing makes the most beautiful green seeds. They're very small, but one pod can give you enough seed to replant next year. It's pretty unbelievable. That's not complete size yet. I've had these pods pickled, almost like a pickled okra, and they were just absolutely delicious. So, and I think the leaves are delicious. They tend to, I guess you could say, maybe get a little bit woodier towards the end of season. Early on in the year, they tend to be a little more tender. That goes the same for all your perennial vegetables. That young growth is typically the most tender, the sweetest. But this one I've noticed as it starts to get towards fall, kind of tends to get a little bit more on the woody side. So papayas, way too big for their pot. Probably do like a buy one, get one free on those too. Try to push them out of here. Celosia. And I think that's about it, other than a bunch of more Cattleya guavas that are a lot larger down here. We carry the strawberry and the lemon variety. I actually prefer the lemon over the strawberry. It is one of my favorites. It's a pretty tree in the landscape. Also, here's some more of that roselle. Going to flower, setting calyx, kind of getting towards the end of that season. I'm going to peek into the Jabo house, guys, and I'm going to wrap this up for you. Big old Cattleya guavas. These are both strawberries. Really pretty trees, really gorgeous hardwood. And both of these guys are they're big. I haven't pruned them in a few years. It's time to cut them back. So ready for a haircut. Don't really want them overgrowing that door space. Really want to kind of keep them in a bit of a 8 to 10 foot range and try to really maintain that umbrella shape to them. So ideally I want to see the trunks, want to kind of have like an umbrella up there on the other side. That's a very typical, very common look, especially in standard neighborhoods, that umbrella like tree, which in Florida it's typically like a ligustrum. Well, I've seen many cases where we put in the Cattleya guavas in the front yard and people don't even know the difference, and you're getting the fruit. So that's one that slides into the HOA. People don't know what you're doing. It's kind of that sleight of the hand where you're slipping in that edible without them really even knowing. So say it's a ligustrum. Most people don't know. All right, stepping into our main propagation house, and lots of seed gets started in here. A lot of action happens in here on a daily basis. These are really cool. I have a bunch of dwarf Gurmichama. Not a very common one. Haven't tried the fruit on it yet, but it's just a cool looking compact plant. Definitely a different structure than the typical Grumichama. I have lots of different varieties of Japoticaba. So guys, these things get freak die-offs all the time, especially the scarlets. I probably lose about 20% of the trees. We grow them into a 4-inch, we put them into a 6-inch, we put them to a 1 gallon, 3 gallon, etc. the whole way up. This is obviously a little bit of a different one here. These guys are way too big, like I said. There's those papayas I was pointing out from outside. Really cool varieties, but they're getting a little bit too big. We sold about 60% of them and still have a good handful left. These are all Cherry of the Rios. What do we have here? ESQ, what is this? This guy's a little bit beat up. Let's see if I can pull him out of here. All right, I'm not gonna get the one I wanted. Uh-oh. Ariana Petrantha Hybrid number 1. So it's got some neat new growth on it, a couple spots. Some of these guys grow better than others. I've definitely noticed, there's a bit of a growth difference between the varieties, depending on the water, depending on your acidity. Everything plays a factor with Japoticabas. Some ice cream bean hanging out in here. Really cool new growth. Very, really cool how it grows the larger leaf there on the stem. And my favorite right next to it is the yellow Japoticaba. It's like velvet on the leaves. Has like a fuzz on it. Super soft. Really cool looking plant. What do we got growing on over here? I see scarlets over here on this side. Not sure if your scarlet's over there, but what makes this scarlet so popular is, whoa, Marcella caulifloria. The scarlet can fruit in 3 years. So your typical Sabara Japoticaba, 10, 15 years. Red Japoticaba, maybe 5, 6 years. This guy, we're talking about 3 years. So in the Japoticaba world, that is really, really, really fast. So that's what makes this one so popular. Guys, I maybe get 60 to 70% of the seed to come up. 20% of the seed comes up, has a freak die-off, which is kind of weird. Don't know if it's soil condition, water issue. Everybody that grows scarlets kind of sees the same problem. So it's more of across the board. But you're going to hear a lot about this Japoticaba in the future. If you haven't heard enough about it already, I think it's probably one of the most popular ones. There's some more of these dwarf Grumichamas. Check this little guy out. Oh, I think these have the coolest growth pattern. Just a short little stubby bush. Let's see here. I'll get you guys one with the name tag on it. There we go. Really cool looking plant. And I don't care where you are in the country, maybe Japoticaba is not your typical growing zone. This can be grown in a container. This can be grown as a house plant. I think it could be grown as a Christmas tree if you wanted to. I mean, there's many different ways. You only have to bring it inside when it's well below 32 degrees. Otherwise, most of the year that plant could probably spend its time outside, especially if it's getting water. It can also spend its entire life in a container. It does not need to be put in the ground. One of the most famous Japoticabas, I personally think, is the Grimmel. Makes a really, really big seed. This one is named after Adolf Grimmel from the Florida Keys, really famous collector. This is one that does really good, I think, in the salt, coastal type areas. The fruit is huge. That is one of the reasons that one is so popular. Just a really big, dark fruit. Different leaves, too. I mean, these aren't the same as your typical red or your Sabra. They're a little thicker. They're a little darker green, they tend to be. What else we got growing on in here? We got a bunch of white Japoticabas. So this one actually makes, when I say white, the fruit's not actually white. It tends to ripen about a light green color. All off the trunk of the tree, the same as the others. Some of these varieties will fruit in 5 years. Some are probably closer to 8 years, depending on the variety of the white. What else do we have over here? Campo Ramon. This one has been kind of popular. Have not tried the fruit on it yet. Excited to give it a chance. It is definitely a cool looking plant. One of my favorite parts about it is it's constantly pushing new growth. And if you guys grow Japoticabas or if you're into plants like I am, I think that's probably one of my favorite parts is this beautiful new growth that gets this red to it, this orange to it, yellow to it, just depending on what stage it's pushing. You can really see that's the young tender growth. And as it gets older, it hardens off, gets a little bit more green to it. Whoa, so this is definitely not a very common one. I actually imported these, I think, from China or Japan. This is a giant red cristal. Don't have many of these. Probably don't have these on the online store. I'd like to kind of sit on these, see what they do. If they fruit, definitely going to hold on to them. Bunch of Sabra varieties. This is just the most common variety. I'm going to do a grafting video here soon, and Sabra would be the preferred rootstock for any of those red hybrids. So the red's great because it fruits much quicker, but it tends to sucker. Constantly putting suckers up off the bottom, which the Sabra doesn't do as often. So that's why it is the preferred rootstock. So grafting red hybrids out of my greenhouse that are fruiting onto Sabra rootstocks, all of a sudden now we have a plant that's fruiting at a very small size at a very young age. So that is the reason why grafting is so awesome. Let's see what we got here. It looks like another type of white, Petrantha branca. Beautiful plants. I absolutely love the long leaves that the whites have on them. I have a yellow in front of my house in deep shade that's been here since almost I moved in, that fruits multiple times a year. No water, minimal light. So these things do good in dappled light. We do notice that we have a shade cloth on this greenhouse. I really wish I had one on the big red Jabo house. Hasn't happened yet, but it is coming soon. So this is kind of a cool one. This is a rare variety that we're kind of playing with of the edible leaf hibiscus. I have one that even gets variegation to it. This one gets a little bit of red. So really cool looking plant. Some more peanut butter fruit, monsteros, and that's about it in here, guys. I'll try to do some more nursery updates videos for you guys on the regular. I have been busy. I've been slacking. I've put it out there a couple times. I'm looking for somebody to do more editing, to do more video shooting. Just times I don't have time to pick up the camera. Robbie, that does my editing now, is awesome, but he's all the way over on the East Coast. He doesn't live very local. It's really tough to get him over here to film, and I get it. So Robbie's going to continue to edit, but I'd like to put out maybe even daily videos again, especially with everything that's been going on with the garden. So if you do video editing, you're interested in what we do, you want to get involved, definitely drop me an email. Put the link in the description down below. But hope you guys enjoyed this update video. It's 2022. Hope you're growing some plants. Hope you've started a garden. Hope you've planted a food forest. And most importantly, down to earth.